Longplay 4K Review, Medal of Honor Airborne. Medal of Honor, Airborne seems to us a qualitatively new step in the market of WW2 shooters. It really seems so, if to put together the capabilities declared by EA Los Angeles, it seemed to be an action game about the Second World War of enormous size, equipped with at least 2 original solutions. So, having played Airborne for some unfortunate 5 hours and having not seen, in fact, anything new, but having received a certain aesthetic pleasure, you are surprised to find some absolutely childish resentment in your soul. Airborne Troops Day. This time the center of the, story was the US 82nd Airborne Division. For those who are not in the know, we inform, this elite unit was created back in the First World War, then disbanded, and when the States entered the Second World War, the division was reconvened. The paratroopers took part in the battles for Africa, then landed in Sicily, and on their combat account not only failed Operation Market Garden, but also active participation in the Allied counteroffensive in the Ardennes. Despite the fact that there is a protagonist, and his name is Boyd Travers, Airborne doesn't tell any clear plot. The only dramatic scene in the whole game is when a Nazi tank crushes the head of a fellow soldier. The new Medal of Honor offers 6 unrelated missions: landing in Sicily, the same Operation Market Garden, landing directly on German territory, and so on. Each story follows the same scenario. First we sit at the briefing, where our superiors explain the situation for about 5 minutes, then suddenly we find ourselves in an airplane and prepare to jump, then the airplane gets under fire of enemy air defense, several statisticians are immediately killed, and the rest of them fall out of the airplane screaming. It's really impressive the first time, but by the 5th and 6th time, the trick is tiring, to say the least. The parachute jump, which Electronic Arts positioned as a supporting structure of Airborne, in fact turned out to be an uncomplicated arcade fun that doesn't require any effort from you at all. For starters, the jump takes place on autopilot. The protagonist, don't be a fool, will personally run to the exit of the burning glider, independently tear the ring that opens the parachute, and without any extra help will make all the necessary preparations for landing. Only the final result depends on us. If you do nothing at all, the hero will fall face down in the roadside dust, shake a little, then unbuckle the parachute, and forward, into battle. If you press the W key just a second before landing, Boyd will definitely land on his feet, receive a congratulation from his superiors and, again, go into battle. In general, the landing process itself looks extremely conventional and can be seriously considered only as an interactive cutscene. The second item of Airborne's stated achievements is freedom. It is, let's say, peculiar here. While the protagonist is flying to the ground, you can look around and look for a cozy clearing for a landing. At this moment there is not a blurred texture, but a relatively large level under your feet. Theoretically, you can land at any point of it. Landing on the roof, you should immediately take a favorable position and stealthily shoot the crots from the dominant height. Falling somewhere in the yard, you should go to the enemy from the rear. For those who aren't inclined to such experiments, there is some green smoke, practically lilac fog, on the ground, and landing near it is guaranteed to be safe. There will be no one around but an ammunition crate. The trouble is that the grimaces with aiming landing are essentially unnecessary. It's easier and safer to reach tactically advantageous places on foot, and attacking from the rear most often does not bring any tangible effect. In addition, the developers still limited our freedom. First of all, the main character flies to the ground at the speed of a torpedo, so it is impossible to reach many hypothetically accessible places purely physically. As a result, if you want to land on a rather small, limited territory. Secondly, following the glorious traditions of the series, Airborne is full of completely illogically built brick walls, which serve as an artificial barrier, limiting your freedom of movement. And only when the necessary task is given, the game carefully creates a passage. Unexpectedly a tank passed by or something exploded. 2. The mechanics of the game, alas, does not dispose to some sophisticated techniques, but you don't have them in your arsenal. In Airborne, brutal action of extreme concentration, comparable only to the first Call of Duty, rules the reign. As soon as the main character unhooks the slings of the parachute, the list of tasks before the player narrows down to the traditional minimum program: to run fast, shoot accurately and jump. That is to perform exactly the same movements as in 99.9% of other WW2 shooters. Every 10 seconds a dozen of furious fascists are attacking, so all you have to do is to press the button. Shootouts in Airborne take up the lion's share of the time. If in Call of Duty 3, Xbox 360, PS3, we were allowed to ride in cars and tanks, and the game was full of active scenes, you get hit in the head with a buttstock, and you knock out your rifle by tapping the right buttons, then Airborne doesn't have that either. We're either mowing down crops on an industrial scale or planting explosives. Though the shootouts themselves turned out to be surprisingly peppy. Enemies, it seems, have learned to think, act not at the will of scripts and react to the change of environment. So, for example, if your squad got into a fight on a city street, and then you appeared from a neighboring alley and started mowing down enemies at point-blank range, the Germans will immediately pay attention to you, try to regroup and focus fire on Traver's humble person. Sometimes, however, it comes to a funny thing: the enemies always shoot at the main character, even if his comrades broke into the dense ranks of the enemy, handing out blows to the right and left. Among other things, EA loudly promised to give us the opportunity to improve almost any weapon in the game. They said that during the World War II every self-respecting soldier somehow upgraded his automatic rifles and pistols, taped additional magazines, filed the barrels. We hasten to inform you that in Airborne the whole upgrade consists in the following: each weapon in the game has its own experience scale. As the enemies are destroyed it fills up, and when the machine gun reaches the next level, a new feature is automatically attached to it. Thompson magazine capacity expands from 30 rounds to 50, Schmeisser starts to hit more accurately, the pistol sharply increases its speed. Such is the RPG system. Airborne is not a serious game at all. Upgrades here appear by magic right on the battlefield, weapon characteristics don't affect anything, landing is a one-time children's attraction, health is restored with the help of first aid kits. And when by the end of the game there are concrete Uber-fascists dressed in gas masks, the atmosphere somehow imperceptibly slips into kitsch, you look forward to Lenin in a leather coat. However, don't think that Airborne is a complete failure. Despite the fact that there is not a single gram of fresh ideas here, and the declared innovations turned out to be some empty clanging, it is still a very dynamic and beautiful shooter. Smooth animation of characters, bright flashes of tracers, dazzling grenade explosions, these simple human joys are enough to run Airborne to the end. All the more so because you'll need 5 hours of your life to do it. Airborne turns out to be more than just the shortest installment in the series. Unfortunately, it lacks the old ideas of the series, time-tested techniques. If Medal of Honor, Pacific Assault made a serious step in the direction of brand development, then Airborne is 3 clear steps back, a return to the original position. The new Medal of Honor is like a Hollywood movie about comic book heroes. It shows a beautiful picture, can entertain for several hours, but leaves no emotions in the head or in the heart.